Welcome. This is Triaging Time, and I'm your host, Dan Luna. Today's show, we have Justin Douglas. Justin Douglas is the founder and CEO of Corvus Janitorial Systems, a national franchisor of office cleaning businesses. Justin graduated 2002 with a philosophy and organizational development degree from Vanderbilt. Justin worked as an analyst for a San Francisco-based boutique merchant bank. And in 2004, Justin launched Corvus Janitorial Systems. Corvus now has 500 active unit franchisees who provide office cleaning and janitorial services to businesses and organizations across 17 U.S. markets, wherein Corvus hires employees to help support franchisees with their entrepreneurial journey. Justin, welcome, and thank you so much for the shirt. Appreciate rocking your colors.
Of course. Thank you for waving the flag for us, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So I know your time's valuable, so I'd like to jump right into it. Life, leadership, volatility, and trauma. If we only had a few minutes, the years of experience that you have in and out of business, what advice would you share with us today?
Boy, that's a good question. I think that to your point, you do have years of experience running a business and running an operation that is highly dependent on human beings and interacting with other human beings. So you learn a lot, but these are certainly interesting times that we're living in. And so I think what I would have, I think what applied in normal times applies now. I think when it comes down to it, doing the work, being aware, noticing, planning, and trying to take care of the work that you have on your desk at that moment, I think that's huge. And it doesn't mean that there aren't other large existential threats that folks are going to face, or that there aren't other bigger issues that weigh on you, but just doing the work and taking care of the work that you have to do every day. It's not that exciting. It's not, or it doesn't sound that exciting. And it doesn't sound like you necessarily need a PhD from Harvard to say that, but I think that's a huge part of managing trauma, volatility, and uncertainty. I think also it's really important to not let one crisis create another. And those go hand in hand. You've got to do the work that's in front of you. Just doing it is half the battle. But when you're confronted with additional issues, with additional stressors or circumstances that you didn't anticipate, being able to compartmentalize those issues and not let this problem create another one. So doing the work and compartmentalizing.
I love it. And you said something that really stuck out to me that I'm going to steal from you, if that's okay. And it's don't let one crisis cause another one.
Yeah.
Do you mind just elaborating on that a little bit more? I love it.
Yeah, it's actually, and I stole that from someone else, but I stole it from Charlie Munger, who of course is the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's conglomerate, and they've been partners for 30 years. And Charlie wrote a great book, and Charlie's known to be sort of irreverent, and he is direct. And in his book, he talks about his first wife. I think the situation was his first wife had some serious health issues and was going to pass. And he describes leaving her hospital room and walking around Pasadena, which is where Charlie's from, and just being overcome with grief and emotion because his life was taking a turn that he had never anticipated. And he has this moment in this book saying, but what I resolved to do is not let one crisis create another. And that's always just stuck out for me, that, it's simple, but not easy. if you think about losing a loved one or undergoing a really material life change, it's very easy to let that those circumstances affect you in other ways, but not doing that is so important. Meaning not allowing one tragic event to percolate through your entire life, and compartmentalizing. And and Charlie Munger's obviously a very smart guy, and so that's where I got that from. But it's always just been a great. It's a great saying, and a mental reminder, and especially when you've got a team or an organization, if it were easy, everyone would do it. And how you handle headwinds is really the measure of an individual or an organization's aptitude. When you face those headwinds, handle those and don't let them create other headwinds.
Hey, Justin, we're in a pretty serious headwind right now with a lot of small businesses and even big businesses with the current state of the market, of the economic system. What advice, and you're a pretty savvy guy, you've helped me out, and you still kind of scold me with some business things that I've been working on, so I appreciate your mentorship. What advice would you share with other business owners out there during these times?
That's a good question. There's going to be a lot of pain. And so before getting to advice, I think that there needs to be, I think business people should try to be of two minds. And you need to affect those two mindsets concurrently, even though they seemingly contradict one another. And so another great book, or Jim Collins is a great author. By the way, I would say for anyone who wants to succeed in business or life, just read as much as you can. So Jim Collins talks about the Stockdale paradox, which is from Admiral Stockdale, James Stockdale, when he was a POW in the Hanoi Hilton. And he talked about, on the one hand, he always committed his mind to being optimistic, to engaging in hope, having a deep faith and sort of devotion to the fact that he was going to get out of there, but simultaneously being hyper rational about the circumstances and hardships he was facing. And I think that's what business people need to be thinking about at the moment, that we need to be gritty and creative and innovate, and now more than ever, attend to our people, find ways to make sure our relationships are reinforced, the ones that we have, and then also with our stakeholders, whether it's customers, vendors, and have that sort of buoyancy. But at the same time, be very mindful of the fact that this is going to take longer than people expect. And, now is the time to look at your expenses. Now is the time to really be mindful, just from a practical standpoint, on your receivables. Are your customers paying you? And, and I guess those are derivative points connected to the fact that, I don't know what, like we had another 5 million folks apply for unemployment. That's a big deal. And so what I would say to business people is be positive, work really hard right now, try to innovate. With our business, the way we sell contracts is we go out and meet with someone who manages a facility. That's obviously not practical or even allowable. And so now we're doing virtual consultations. I think, Dan, you've said to me over the years, you don't want to let a crisis go. I forget how you phrased it, but, never make the best out of every crisis. And what really that means is, rather than being afraid and bunkering down and having the perspective, well, we've always done things this way, and now we've got these headwinds, and now we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Well, what do the circumstances create, whether you wanted those circumstances to exist or not, that are going to allow you to adapt and grow and innovate? And so, I think that's really critical at the moment.
That was great. Thanks, Justin. If you're okay with it, I'd like to shift gears just a tad, because you are in the cleaning business, and so
Yeah.
I'm just curious, kind of on your CEO, and I'd love to dive into that maybe after this on some of your leadership stuff. I know it's a conversation that we have frequently, and then on the business side, but also the cleaning side. Like we're in a very unique time, not only for the business, but just for information about cleaning and sterilizing stuff. Do you mind elaborating on that as far as just general, for whether it's folks at home or for folks still going to work?
Yeah, certainly. And so what I always now try to caveat any remark about technique or practices is that COVID is moving so quickly that information shifts in real time. So I think it's always important for your viewers and audience to go to cdc.gov. That's where the best information is going to be. And I say that because we now are in a position where we get questions like the one you've posed, where the answer has a very meaningful effect on people's lives. And not that we didn't have effects on folks' lives beforehand, but people were not quite as focused on an EPA certified disinfectant versus another one. So, we just want to be careful about making sure people are getting good information. So, the economy is closed. What we have tried to do is take the skills and abilities that we feel we have and share those with whomever wants them. And how that plays out in practice is how you clean your home. And so there are a couple of things that we kind of break them into two buckets. There's the actual cleaning, the technique, the tools, but then there's the mentality. And I think the mentality is a more interesting topic than the tools. And what I mean by that is that, we're all now living at home together, which is lovely. And I hope, Dan, that my children told them that we're going to be on here, and so they won't run in and scream. But having an organization and a cadence around sanitizing your home is really important. Everyone needs to pull their own weight or be a part of that process. And whether it's, getting creative and organized about who does what their jobs are, and making sure people follow through with that is really important. Also, how do you start compartmentalizing your home? For whatever reason, when people get a package, they're thrilled. It's like Corona doesn't exist. But, maybe that package should sit on your stoop or in a garage or somewhere in your home where it's ostensibly quarantined for a period of 4 hours. When you bring groceries into your house, in a kitchen, divide up your surface area where, hey, this stuff hasn't been sanitized yet. This has. And so, being regimented works. People aren't, it works. And so having a regimen to how you sanitize and clean your house and getting your entire team to buy in is critical, because it is a team sport. At the end of the day, business, philanthropic organizations, whatever, it's a bunch of human beings who are trying to achieve an aim, an end state that you've got to get people aligned with. So that's really important. From a cleaning perspective, though, what I would tell your audience is be very aware of the areas in your home that you don't clean and start doing it. And so I'll give you 3. People don't clean their sink. And it's funny because dishes get to their sink and they're washing dishes and they put dishes away. But people don't clean their sink. You should sanitize your sink. people should also clean and sanitize. If you've got a laundry room, whether it's in an apartment complex, your own home, your appliances, there's something about when we take our laundry to the laundry room, like, well, we're in the laundry room now, so it's fine. Well, no, all of those germs, especially if you're cleaning rags, are getting into that space. And so being really aware of cleaning that area down. And then also trash cans. And people pull a bin liner and they take it to the street and they put it in their dumpster. But that plastic receptacle around which the bin liner was is really dirty. So those three things are super important. And the last thing is you got to let chemicals work. It's a chemical because it needs to have a chemical reaction. So if you're applying a disinfectant to a surface, give it as much time to dwell as you can. So ideally 20 seconds. People say, well, what's the slippery slope when it no longer is effective? If you can only let it dwell for 7 seconds, great. But letting the chemical do its job is really important.
Justin, do you have any advice for folks in critical positions still going into work? And that can be everything from, an Amazon worker going into the warehouse to law enforcement, firefighter, or, doctors or nurses at the hospital. Do you have any advice for them as far as cleaning or protocols or regiment or anything that you could share with them?
Yeah, I do. I guess the first thing, though, that I would say is thank you to all of those people. And, recessions usually hit the folks you're talking about last. In this case, those are the folks who it's hit first, financially as well as from a health and safety perspective. So I do think that this country owes a great thanks to people who serve. And it's been, it's too bad and it's sad, but there has been a greater awareness around the deep value that a firefighter brings to bear for our families, for our communities, for a nurse, and not just first responders, but the folks that are going to work at the grocery store. So we have food, or the truck drivers. So I think that's the first thing. I think, it's my hope that people are appreciative and acknowledge this cohort of people that really make our country run. In terms of practical techniques, what we keep saying over and over is being super aware, vigilant, and not getting complacent. And again, those are not specific cleaning bits of advice, but if you're feeling okay, it's very easy to get complacent. It's going to be fine if I don't take my shoes off when I come into my own home. But there was a statistic that came out the other day that, in some of the hardest hit hospitals, 50%, I would want a very high percentage of folks who work in those hospitals have COVID spores or traces of COVID on their shoes. And that makes sense. The virus is in the air, it falls to the floor, people are walking through, they're walking on that. So I think, you do have to balance being practical and living your life with being aware. But if you can remove any clothing that you wore when you were out in the world performing that phenomenal service that folks are doing for us, certainly shoes, any items that you might have had on you that you put on your own desk, phone, keys, a pen, being really aware of what those things are and disinfecting them and cleaning them, immediately going in and washing your hands, taking a shower, and using the proper techniques and trying to sort of having a mini quarantine when you come home. And Dan, that none of the things that I just explained, are atom splitting. The hard part, though, is just to be disciplined about it, because our lives have shifted so substantially, and getting the entire team to buy in to those new standards and operating procedures. Hey, when mommy comes home, typically we would go give her a big hug. Mommy's home. Now we're not going to do that. Mommy's going to remove her clothes and put it in a plastic bag we leave by the door. Not remove her clothes, what she can or he can. And we will hug mommy after she showers, because mommy's been in a hospital all day trying to keep people alive. And so just being aware of the circumstances that we're dealing with, and creating a plan that everyone buys into. But certainly, by the way, hand sanitizers in your car, washing your hands as often as possible. I think shoes are a big deal. And yeah, I would have a work uniform.
That was great.
This is what I go to work in.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said that was great. Did you have something you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing some of these things that seem so small, but you just get in this routine, so you don't notice, right? So even in the beginning, you said notice and planning were some of the aspects of dealing in a volatile environment. So almost what I'm hearing is now just noticing and planning almost those patterns that have become routine or a past routine, and now looking where we're presently at, and now readdressing those patterns and that routine to ensure if that's the best plan moving forward. And you may have to switch plans, entering the house, going through the shoes, tracking that, even the thoroughness of cleaning. That's what I'm hearing. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's right. I think there's a deeper opportunity for our country. Look, so I would say this, incidentally, betting against the United States has been a losing wager since 1776. So these are material headwinds, but I think the optimism and fortitude and sense of community spirit that our country actually does promote is outstanding. So, but having said that, so yes, being more aware, you're hearing me correctly, but I also think we need to be aware of the impact that folks have. It's a force multiplying effect. Our franchisees can't get sick because they need to go clean offices where people need to be employed. A nurse cannot get sick, because he or she could save 50 lives. And so being aware of that obligation we now have to society and talking about it in your home so that you and your team, whomever you're with, can support you in making that new plan is critical, because people have massive abilities to positively affect folks' lives if they stay healthy and in a good spot. So yes, plans need to change, but the why behind the plan and the long-term value is really important, I think, for people to talk about.
So I'd like to give you a few minutes, and I wish I had more time. Just the conversations that we've had in and around leadership. I know you're a fellow student of leadership as well, very well read, and we've had a lot of conversations. Just some of those, as you know, I think it's very important to not just know something or consume information, but also to practice it, to apply it to your life daily, whatever that looks like, to have a daily practice and to put that knowledge to good use. Can you just share with us like some of your leadership philosophy, things that some tips, things that have stuck with you. I know you mentioned some stuff earlier on, so maybe some additional things that you have found to be really helpful for you as a CEO, and maybe outside of business as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're worth what you pay for them, Dan, which is zero. And when I started my business when I was 23 or 24, I basically knew everything. Now at 40, I know that I do not know anything. And you wake up every morning and you try your best and you give your all. And you hope things turn out for the best. I think, whether it's leadership or sort of organizational objectives, something that I didn't do well early on in my career was think about the people who are taking care of the people. I think it's really easy to get caught up with strategy or intellectual activities that are going to move your business forward or your organization forward. But if you don't focus on that person in your team who is doing the work, who is on the front line, whether it's a grocery store clerk or a janitor or a salesperson, understand what they're going through and supporting them and talking to them about why their role is so critical, you do yourself a huge disservice. And so I think taking care of the people who take care of the people is something that we as leaders should do. I also think that, people say you don't bring your personal life to work, and that's true. I understand that, but we're human beings, and it's, of course, we bring our stuff to work. So working hard at understanding what your teammates are going through, especially in times like this, we want to be really aware of those teammates of ours who are single and live by themselves. They've been by themselves now for 30 days. So being aware of what's going on in folks' lives and what's important to them, I think, is really important to achieve organizational goals. But I do think, it's 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. And, when I think about failures that I've had, which are voluminous, more times than not, it was a function of just not getting up and doing the work. When you do the work, things take care of themselves. Not always, but I just think sometimes we want to look for this silver bullet, and there isn't one. Take care of people, understand what your folks need and want, and do the work. And tell them why the work that they're doing is important and how it can positively affect people's lives.
I love it. So I have a selfish question, and I typically don't ask selfish questions, but just because you and I have spent so much time together, I'm going to ask a selfish question. What has been your biggest takeaway from our work together?
The importance of patience.
Do you mind elaborating?
And I think that wraps into other constructs, but if I, which is what I think you want, a soundbite, if you will. When you're frustrated with something that's going on in your life or your business or whatever, humans are highly irrational creatures, and our brain plays into that. And taking the time to stop, Dan, as you've said, a tactical pause, and trying to get perspective around what's really happening, and thinking, three-dimensionally or in a 360-degree manner. Am I frustrated about this, or is it this? And if it is this, how is that? Then I'm not compartmentalizing. But you can only do that if you're patient, and you stop and you assess, and you do so dispassionately, not where you're going to beat yourself up, but you're just, you can take stock of things, of what's going on. I think so. Having the discipline to have patience
and being kind to yourself.
Yes, that was a funny moment when the first time we ever spoke. Given your background, I was not expecting necessarily, which is not fair to you or your colleagues. But when your first adage, your first advice to me was that, hey, you really need to make sure that you're being kind to yourself. I think you actually said gentle. And I said, but this is not what I thought. This is not what I thought I would get at our first call, but it was, and you're right. And it's interesting, Dan. That advice is so powerful, and frankly, it's applicable in all realms of operations. Mm-hmm. It might not be appropriate for some people to say, "Hey, candidate, be gentle with yourself." Mm-hmm. But what it speaks to is how believe in yourself, have confidence in yourself, focus on the things that you are doing well. You're going to have setbacks. Don't let those hijack your brain. So I thought that was terrific advice.
That we still get to revisit. What's that?
And I say, and thank you for it.
Oh, you're welcome. And I was saying that we still get to revisit every now and then too. And
you are very kind in reminding me to be kind to myself from time to time. Yes, that's true.
And it's a great reminder for me as well. So I think it's one of those things that I think there's a lot of rhetoric out there of, crush yourself and be in the pain. And it's like, yes, to a point, and that's not sustainable.
Right.
Like I want to work out, but I don't work out for 24 hours straight. There's a cycle there. There's a cycle of pain and pressure, and then there's a recovery, and then there's a prep, and then there's an action, you're back in it again. So even that real basic cycle, that's something that I've shared with first responders as well, that prep phase might be prior to starting that shift. You're in that action phase, you're in it, like you have that mindset that you're going into it with, and then when you come out of it, right, as you were saying, on that drive home, or as you're getting ready to transition from the car or from work to home, there's now another hat that you have to put on, and now that's almost that recovery phase. Like, hey, how do I process this? Hey, there's a reflection of grounding yourself, of processing, of thinking through something, of getting ready to, greet your family, and there's that transition that goes through it, and there's that recovery phase where it's okay to rest and be gentle and be caring and to take care of yourself, and then you go right back to that prep phase again and back in that action phase. So it's that cycle, and sometimes people think that like constant pain is constantly good, and I would totally argue against that.
No, I agree. I mean, I think having said that, I think we both agree that it is absolutely critical to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. That's when growth occurs. Mm-hmm. Whether it's working out and you lift heavy and you break down muscles and then they grow, or trying something new. What I think is sort of interesting and an odd dichotomy is that first responders, law enforcement folks, they are so committed to, they don't have a career, they have a calling. Mm-hmm. It's not a job, it's who they are. And they're so committed to that it is hard mm-hmm. to give your mind a break and a timeout from being on point. And yet I think, listen, it's sort of, what do they say about new mothers, they've got to get enough sleep for themselves and rest and energy in order to take care of their child. Mm-hmm. And so I think, that recovery phase, I think if reframing it where recovery, which you've done, which I think is really effective. It's not that you're being lazy or you're, the absence of perpetual grind does not mean you're going to become less effective. In fact, it might mean you're going to become far more effective because you will recharge your batteries. You will take stock of the thing, what I just said, being patient and giving yourself grace where you can say, you know what, tomorrow I need to talk to Bill about changing the plan, because in retrospect, he was right. But I had my jersey on. I didn't want to hear it. And we were going 100 ways from Sunday. So I think you're right. I think you're totally right.
So we have a little bit of time left, and I told you I'd bring this question up for you, since you allowed me to ask you so many questions. Do you have anything for me?
Naturally, Dan, I have a huge list of questions that I would love to pose, but that will be for our podcast when you come on our show.
Okay.
No, what I would say, no, then I will still monopolize the time you're giving me. I think that I think service is really important, as you know, and I think that it's really admirable how you are bringing that total mentality behind service to what you do in life. And, we've talked about this over the years. You're part of a very elite organization that most people could never become a part of, even if they wanted to and tried. But what I think is really impressive about you and 3LX is that mentality applies to everything you do. And so we're very grateful for what you've done for our company and serving us and working with us on how we think about supporting people and leading people and managing it and just being better people. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. So if I may, and I love saying this to civilians who I really admire. I admire their support and how they serve in their capacity. But you don't have to wear a uniform to serve. So how you support veterans, I know your company's hire veterans and you look to hire veterans. And even now in how you're supporting organizations, so the cleaning stuff that we were talking about, I know that's information that you're now starting to provide via social media, like just giving that intellectual property away, serving where you're able to. Can you just talk a little bit about that, like what you guys are trying to do, just so folks can go there and look for some of these tips?
Yes. So I'm embarrassed to say I'm going to get our Instagram handle wrong, but we have two, and it's Corvus _franchising janitorial.
Okay.
I'm sort of a Neanderthal when it comes to social media, so we're just kind of getting up to speed on that. But our website, corvusjanitorialsystems.com, is a great resource, and we're trying to share information about how you stay healthy, what products to use to clean, some of the things we've talked about in today. And as you've sort of maintained from the start, sharing your expertise with people so you can make lives better, regardless of whether there's a commercial outcome. I think if you, I know you don't love this line, but if you try to do the right thing when no one else is watching consistently, good things work out. So yeah, so our website's a great resource. Our Instagram handle or account, if I'm saying that right. Do I tweet a handle?
You're talking to another dinosaur. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah,
I get scolded on even my posts.
Yeah. And we want to hire. We don't think of it as hiring. We want to partner with people who have served. And so, yes, military is a great channel for that, but firefighters or teachers, they serve. And we just hired a COO, which I will admit I had to look up what a COO does. But he's a retired lieutenant colonel and just a great guy, and brings that ethos of wanting to help people. Of course, is is quite diligent with respect to organization. I gather if PowerPoint went away, it seems like our armed forces would deteriorate. But he's doing a lot of, and I tell him that, but he's doing a lot of awesome stuff for us. So yeah, we're happy to, it's a team sport in life. We try to help people, and if you can do that, I think good outcomes will result.
I love it. Hey, as our time comes to a close, how would you summarize everything that we've covered?
Oh, Dan, that's a tough. I think do the work that's in front of you every day. Be aware. Notice what's going around you. Plan. Set up observable, small, daily wins. And be kind to people, including yourself. And if you go out, if you can make, it's interesting. Exponential direction is powerful, and it can go in both directions, positive or negative. If you have a goal of trying to do something thoughtful or kind for two people every day, and this sounds trite, sounds like a fortune cookie, and they in turn go do that, the compounding effect of that goodwill and commitment to making other people's lives better, it works. Again, it sounds trite, sounds like a fortune cookie, but people can have a material impact on their social network, their communities, and broad groups of people just by virtue of the fact of trying to help people. So, that would be what I hope folks take away from our time.
I love it. Do you have any final thoughts? Or are you good? Are you good where we're at?
No, this is great. I appreciate you having me on. I'm flattered that I'm not sure that I qualify to be in the same role that some of the folks who you have spoken to already are in, or people you're going to. So I appreciate you letting us come on and me come on and answer your questions. So,
Justin, I appreciate your mentorship. I appreciate your friendship. I'm very grateful for our friendship, and more than qualified. That was great, both from the look of a CEO, look of leadership, the cleaning stuff, just like the uniqueness of the time that we're in. So everything that you shared, I absolutely loved. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today. If you know someone who could get something out of this conversation, please share this video with them. And of course, like, subscribe, comment. Remember to like the channel. And also remember, you don't manage time, you manage yourself, and leadership starts with you. All right, thanks.